So here's trying to clarify the number salad that happens in our brain when we're learning chords at first. If we're playing, say, a blues in B, this is the root, a B, of the 1 chord. The 1 chord is B7. So that's a root, that's a flat 7, that's a major 3rd. Inside of the chord, there is a tritone between the flat 7 and the major 3rd. It's not by the root here, right? If we want to play the 5th on this chord, we can play a perfect 5th. It didn't really add a lot of flavor. That's why we don't need to play it. That's the bare essentials of the dominant chord. Now, when we move to the 4 chord, 1, 4. Now we're going to build a dominant chord on the 4 chord here. Root. Commonly we play it like this. Root, major 3rd, and flat 7. If you look at what happened to that internal tritone from the chord before, right? It just moved down a half step. So a lot of times you're going to see people play the blues like this. So that is really the skeleton of it, without even the roots, right? Usually there'll be a bass player, right, or somebody else playing the roots. So depends on how many people are there, what you're doing. You can definitely play it like this. There's a lot of repetition. That's what's happening here. A lot of octave repetition inside the chords. But truth is, this is what we really need. 4 chord. Now, if you go inside the 4 chord and you look at this tritone, which means 3 whole tones or 3 whole steps between these 2 notes, this is the root of the chord, that's the major 3rd, and that's the flat 7. So in this fingering here, for the first chord, it's not meant to confuse you, but this is the flat 7 and that's the major 3rd. Now this is the major 3rd and that's the flat 7, right? So they flip. When they do that, they flip strings. It's important to realize that because they look the same, right? But their function inside each chord is different. The 5 chord is here, right? Root, major 3rd, flat 7. And then we play through the structure. But what we saw today is that we can put the 5th back on and sometimes put it on the bass. See, on the 4 chord, if you do this, and you put the bass here, this is nice. This generates a different kind of dynamic from the 1 chord.
And that's the inverted 5th?
That fact that whether is it inverted or not doesn't really matter. It's on the bass, right?
Okay.
Now, what matters is maybe
it's on the 4 that you're doing.
It's on the 4 chord.
Yeah.
I'm putting the 4 chord with the 5th on the bass.
Okay.
Right? Now, the word inverted depends compared to what, right? So it doesn't by itself doesn't mean much, right?
Okay.
So these are all terms of distance and relativity between 2 points or more. So it is the 5th of the chord, but I'm playing it on the bass.
Okay.
On the 1 chord, I can put the chord here. If I put my pinky there instead on the major 3rd, I could put the 5th back here. And to me, that sounds a little bit more open and maybe more audible than this. I like these all notes too close together on the bass here. They're a little less distinguishable than when you do. Right? That 5th now sounds kind of okay, right? No 5th here. Root, 3rd, flat 7. Root again. If I wanted to put the 5th here, I could go there and put that on the bass.
Okay.
Right? The same thing with the full chord, put the 5th on the bass. on the bass.
And the root back on
and the
second.
root on the second string. I did this little trick where I went on the flat 7 of the scale or the key, root, the one chord, right? It's the root of all things, right? That's basically the note to which everything else is being compared, like where are the chords and etc. So there it is. I want to show you a little bit extra and super easy. Physically, we play chords with the whole entire 4 notes in the chords. This is a certain inversion of the one chord. Now I want to play a different inversion. I want to do something kind of radical. A lot of people don't do this. It's beautiful though. I want to put the 7th on the bass. The flat 7. Here it is. If this chord's a B, I'll just do it, then I'll dissect. Yeah. This is a B chord. So here's an entire triad with the 5th, the root, and the major 3rd in that chord. And I put that flat 7 here. The 4 chord would be this thing here, but let me show that to you in a second. So here's the one chord with all 4 notes. Here's a different inversion of that chord that has the flat 7th on bass. Here's the chord. It's like a G now, right?
Okay.
Major chord here, and I'm gonna put root, flat 7, and I'm not gonna play this major 3rd here. I could if I want. Just repeating them. Right. Now on the 4 chord.
If now you've added the root back
or the 5th back 1. I'm gonna show how to make a dominant chord. In this case, the 4 chord with the 3rd on the bass, so you can start playing a little bit with the bass line. Here we go. 1 chord. Right? That thing that happened there, different inversion of the 4 chord. So consider this the bonus part of it. So if you got everything to this point, awesome, look into this, right? But do that after you got everything that we talked about so far.
It sounds definitely more jazzy.
Yeah, or bluesy too, because what usually happens is the guitar player keeps doing this, and the bass player goes like...
That's not a 1-4-5 anymore.
It is. It is, but the bass player is playing arpeggios. Right? Of the root, 3rd, and 5th. And because he's not playing a chord, he can play them as the lead guitar player would play, but only on the bass notes here, following the beat. So he got that 1 chord here. Put the flat 7, which belongs in the chord anyway. It's not a note out of the chord. And then come in here. Now let's take a look at this chord here. This is the 4 chord. Here's how it works. The 1 chord is a triad, B, same note, right? It would be here. 1, 4 is here, right? So how would you play a D7 chord like this, right? There it is. This is an E7, right? And we did what we did to the Eric Clapton song here. Instead of this major 3rd on the top, this chord has root, 5th, open the gate, right? Root would be here again from our day studying the caged system.
Okay.
And here, this is the root. That's the flat 7. So this is an E7. I can put the third here, or I can then, so root, fifth, flat 7, major third. I can put that major third on the bass. And I just have to refinger it, but these two notes are going to stay here with different fingers.
And up, yep.
And that's our major third on the bass. So this is a dominant chord with the major third on the bass. It's one for you to start practicing because it comes in handy. It makes the arrangements more rich when you know these inversions for the chords. Then you can start pretending or make believe bass player / guitar player, right? It makes it more interesting. So I'm gonna go from the 1 chord to the 4 chord, right? And it sounds good. So you're not always doing. See you have another option. So 1 chord, 4 chord with the root on the bass, 4 chord with the 5th on the bass, and maybe next time.
On the second one, the root was on the 2nd. The root's up, right?
The root is here. This is the 4 chord.
Okay.
Right? 1 chord, 4 chord. That's the root, major third, flat 7, root again.
That's what I thought.
Okay. Oh, I see what you mean. The 2nd string. See, numbers are the worst thing and the best thing ever. So, second what, right? I put the 5th on the bass. Nice.
Low battery.
Oh. Now, there's a way to move from one to another. That's pretty cool. It actually has a lot of commonality between this, and this. See, I kept 2 fingers on the same string. Between this fingering here with the 5th on the bass, the pinky and the ring finger are on the same fret on strings 3 and 6. So, same here. Just take those 2 down. 3 frets, and then you flip those 2 fingers. There's no change necessary. It's really easy to do once you get used to it. Just Alright, just flip from one string to another. So you play the chord here. 1 chord. So your rhythm playing starts to get more interesting, right? It takes a little practice, and once you learn the mechanic, you understand that they're not totally different as far as the physical feeling of it, then it's not so hard to do. Once you know how to do this one very well, just slide it down 3 frets and go like that. That's your 4 chord. And here's your 1 chord. Pinky stayed on the string in this move. Check it out. And then now we're going to go to the 5 chord. Check it out. Same fingering as the one down there. Now if I didn't want to do that fancy little thing that made me have to take my fingers off, look. That's the 5 chord with the 5th on the bass.
And the root's still on the 2nd string there?
Here's the 5 chord. Root on the 5th, and now root on the 3rd. Okay.